Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Anuj Pandey, and we're going to be talking about his book, which is called Exponential by Design, Growth DNA Designed for an AI-First World. Wow. Anuj, where can people find you?
Oh, we're pretty much available across a lot of channels, but to start with, the main ones are LinkedIn. The book is available on Amazon, and we have our own site called xbd.co.in. People can typically find us there altogether. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's get in. What was the inspiration behind the book?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Okay, so Tim, the thing is, see, if you look at the way the things are turning out, in the way the technology is moving, it's moving at a very exponential rate, which is basically what's that really transpiring into is something like, from an organization perspective, the time to market has shortened down significantly. Imagine a chat GPT reaching around 100 million users in 2 months, right? Or you'd say just Claude 4.6, which just gets launched in 2 months. Or DeepSeek, again, kind of a disruptor in itself. So it's became, in 2 months, it disrupted the entire market. So the time to market has gone down significantly. Along with the time to market, the time to revenue or time to valuation has gone up significantly. I wouldn't say up, but it will be kind of down, because if there's an organization called Nvidia which reaches $2 trillion in just 6 months, that's a huge valuation that you're talking about, and that too in just 6 months. So that is one aspect of things, and the third aspect of it is the time to scale, right? For organizations to reach 100 million users, it's like 2 months, sometime even lesser now. That is creating a complete buzz around what is really transpiring, which is leading to this exponential rate of disruption, right? And this exponential rate of disruption is because of the nature and the way these organizations have been designed. And that's primarily the growth DNA of these organizations, the ability of organizations to use network effects at scale now determines their growth patterns to a large extent. So they're more of networks now. Organizations are more of networks. They're designed and working with networks to a large extent. And the way it's basically panning out is they're creating multiplier effects and learning loops in a way which is continuously making them evolve significantly. So imagine Amazon, which was a bookseller, moving to a e-commerce portal, and now a lifestyle commerce player altogether. That's the kind of evolution that you're looking at. John Deere was basically a tractor company, but it now is an intelligent agricultural, precision agricultural company, right? So those are the fundamental shifts that are basically making me realize that yes, exponential is the word for sure, but it's not by luck. It's by design. These organizations need to design their growth DNA based on those exponentiality principles.
So in the book, you talk about the gap between the fast and the slow, and that's widening by 3.5x every 6 months. So is the traditional 5-year strategic roadmap now officially a liability rather than an asset? Does planning actually hinder designing for exponentially?
Yeah, pretty, very, very strategic question that you've asked there. An important aspect that we need to realize is the fact that the moment you look at planning, the word planning in its industrial form era signifies prediction, right? And prediction is primarily based on the fact that you know something about the future, and then you commit your resources based on those linear principles, right? In a future where you don't know what exactly is going to transpire in the next couple of months, or maybe next month itself, it's extremely difficult for someone to even plan, right? So considering that being the perspective, I don't think planning is really going to make too much of a headway in terms of organizations need to, who are probably redesigning themselves. What really matters is the fact that got to look at architecting your principles into the growth DNA for organizations, which is giving you the learning loop so that you can evolve on the go rather than making a plan for 5 years. And then, just one of the statistics, as part of what I said in disruption era, the average lifespan of an S&P 500 was 60 years, 62 years, somewhere in 1960. Now it's dropped down to somewhere around 18 years, and now it's going to be even lesser to maybe 12 years. Imagine an organization who's going to span around 12 years and are going to plan for 5 years time period. That doesn't stack up, right? So that's basically the fundamental that we're looking at. We cannot really look at a 5-year roadmap in any case right now, where the world is evolving on a monthly basis.
Most CEOs are using AI to cut costs and automate tasks, essentially doing the same things just 10% faster. In your book, you argue for a growth DNA shift. You mentioned this just now. Is this the obsession with AI for efficiency actually blinding leaders to the AI for exponential opportunity?
You're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the reasons why we say one of the statistics that has just come out a couple of months back. It says that 90 to 95% of all AI projects are failing. What's the reason behind it? So we need to understand that although if there's a failure rate of 95% of organizations which are failing, there is a 5% of the organizations which are succeeding. What's the growth DNA? Why are they succeeding, right? So the important thing that we need to really understand is there are two sets of models that have been assigned there. One is an execution-centric model, which has been aligned with the pre-industrial era or the industrial era that you can talk about, right? You have a defined way of planning, designing, going about your learning loops to a large extent there. That's a linear way of working. The moment you look at a linear way of working, your thought process is aligned to KPIs and certain elements which have to be designed based on those execution elements. The focus is more on execution efficiency, which is again linear by nature to a large extent. The other model is an intelligence-centric model where everything, every transaction, every element of an organization is learning on its own on a continuous basis, right? The moment you get into this model and design, what really happens is you're no more looking at a KPI driven. Yes, KPIs will certainly be there, but the level of KPI interaction will be based on the learning loops that you'll be building up. And they will start evolving on the go rather than just purely be looked at, okay, if this threshold is reached, then we will make a decision. If the threshold is not reached, we will not do that. Something of those fronts is basically what we're looking at.
You talk about the cognitive enterprise, a business that senses, learns, and evolves. If a company doesn't have a clean, unified data layer today, is it even possible to design for exponential growth, or are they just putting a coat of paint on a crumbling foundation?
Okay, that's something which has been there for quite a while. I know that I've been privy to all three eras. The PC era, the internet era, and now the AI era. One fundamental factor that has remained constant is the data layer around it, right? The PC era was not that much data centric, but the internet era to a large extent and the AI era now are more data centric, data centric specific. Now, important thing is, although they are data centric, you cannot assume that you're going to be able to attain 100% data sufficiency. You're going to be having your structured data and your unstructured data for sure. But the ability for you to be able to manage the complexity around the unstructured data will determine whether you'll be able to make decisions on the go or not. So a lot of things are now moving towards a moment-based economics, which means that real-time interactions, real-time contextualization of environments, which means that a lot of unstructured data is getting embedded into your organizational data structure. The ability of an organization to meet the ability of an organization to be able to use that data in an effective way on a real-time basis will determine the success or the failure of organizations, if I can probably put it that way.
So as we move towards hyper-converged ecosystems where AI agents do the heavy lifting, what happens to the human element of your X framework? Does leadership become more about architecture and less about management?
Uh, I don't think. See, there's a lot of talk around AI taking away a lot of jobs, and AI completely doing away with humans to a large extent. I have a contrarian view to a large extent.
Okay.
And that's based on the premise saying that human in the loop is certainly going to be there, definitely. The nature and the approach will be slightly different. You're going to be having agents and humans coming together and working together to be able to drive productivity. Now we're talking about an era where we're talking about one person, $1 billion organizations, right? Where Sam Altman puts it, and there are now today organizations which are already $1 billion organizations with 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
The fundamental difference is the productivity of these people goes so high because they're able to use robots and agents in a way which they're able to percolate down to their organizations, right? Now, the important aspect that we need to understand is that every era will bring this change in a way which is slightly different. So our nature of work will be significantly different. Whereas there will be, there were large organizations earlier with large number of people. Here you will have more number of organizations and lesser number of people coming through as well. But these lesser number of people will be doing more work through agents and be much more productive in terms of profitability that will come through. So in the loop is definitely the core behind it. Yes, the nature and the applicability of how organizations are designed around it will be dependent on where the organization sees value to be coming through with it.
You can't build an exponential company with a linear workforce. If a leader adopts your framework, but the middle management is still incentivized by quarterly KPIs and safe increments, doesn't the growth DNA just get rejected like a failed organ transplant?
It does. It does. Because everything that, so today, if you're looking at transformation as such to a large extent, obviously it's top down, right? Now, imagine an organization's engine having all the wherewithals to be able to lead the organization towards the destination, but the middle layers not being competent enough or being able to contradict to their thinking, primarily because of the two things that we discussed about, right? It's not just about the leaders thinking about a new approach, but it's also about the operating model being designed for it. So you have an execution centric approach, but the leaders thinking in an intelligence centric approach doesn't work, right? The intelligence centric approach has to be percolated down towards the operating model for organizations, whether it be in terms of designing your KPIs, whether it be in terms of designing your systems based thinking, which will be defined saying that, how do we look at the overall systems rather than departmental views. A simple example is something like this. A customer support department sees customer as a different entity and owns a customer different side of things. A sales department will look at it from a different sense of it, right? So there are different departments today at different levels seeing the same customer in a different lens. But in intelligence centric approach, all these departments merge and converge, and in a way that will help them understand, okay, the customer is the same, the context is different, and hence the approach has to be a slightly different approach. So my understanding to your question is, yes, the approach is right that the leaders need to define the roadmap, but until and unless the operating model is well designed that it can accommodate the middle management concerns to a large extent as well, it is kind of still not operational.
In the past, moats were brand or capital. You suggest that sensing is a core part of the new DNA. Does a company that can't sense its market in real time even have the right to exist in an AI first world?
Mm. Simple analogy: you can see things, but if you don't have your eyes, uh, can you run or become exponential to a large extent? Yes, there could be few cases that can still be there, but to a large extent, if you're working as an organism, you've got to have the sensing capability to be there, right? So as I said, it's a learning loop that needs to be there. The first part of the learning loop is the sense aspect. If your products, if your because everything today is converged, right? Your products, your customer experience, and your you say value delivery mechanisms, they're all kind of converged. If you do not have a sensing mechanism, you're not able to understand or gather data to a large extent. If you can't sense that data, in any case, the entire body falls apart. So, to my understanding, growth will only compound if you're able to bring the sensing. I'll give you an example. Amazon Go, right? Amazon Go, we all know about it, right?
Yep.
The stores that we have, they are nothing but the complete organism in themselves, right? What is an organism? Every single item put onto the to the carts are basically sensing every movement of not only the customer but also the product that they're having there. Every single movement is also giving rise to basically a pattern, which is basically what is giving them a perspective in terms of the behavioral patterns of not only the consumers but also the products that are on the shelves. Imagine the sense going off completely. Would you be able to do anything? Can't do anything, right? So that's basically the importance of sense in today's perspective. It's the eyes for organizations which need to be there.
You've mentioned that AI agents will drive nearly a third of an enterprise value by 2028. For the skeptics listening, is this mathematical certainly based on the X framework, or is it a best case scenario that assumes we solve the hallucination and trust problems first?
Well, it's certainly not a ceiling or it's not a guarantee. But what I can tell you is the fact that yes, that's the way it's turning out to be. So now agents are, with AGI, the lot of talk around AGI, although I'm still not very, very clear in terms of whether AGI is really going to come through or not. But what we're seeing is, besides the generative AI projects, the agentic AI projects are much more acceptable and much more effective in terms of showing productive gains which are coming through along with it. So an agentic architecture will certainly be there, but we've got to factor in the hallucination aspect as well. Uh, with every system and any system thinking, there are guardrails that need to be built up. Now, as long as you're able to build the guardrails and you're able to build a threshold level within which these learning loops can be defined, the agentic architecture can still work. Because in a bad architecture, what happens is it will only amplify your weak points. And if you architect it rightly, they are the ones that will drive you towards exponential growth. That's my 2 cents on this.
Exponential growth is often chaotic. How does your design framework ensure that a company doesn't just scale into a collapse? How do you build breaks into a system designed for infinite acceleration?
So 3 things that I can talk about. One is this is again more from an architecture perspective. It's again, as we said, it's not about transformation for an organization. It's about redesigning your growth DNA. So with this is part of the growth DNA architecture that we've got to look at. The first thing that you got to look at is the modular decomposition of the agentic architectures, right? So every subsystem should probably be designed with a failure in perspective. So, it's a system thinking, and each of these systems will have their own subsystems. Every subsystem should have their own failure points defined and identified well in advance before they can actually think about. Yes, it's because it's a learning loop. You will continuously redefine and re-threshold it from a perspective of how the failure points will be probably looked at. So that is the first part of it. The second part of it is the stress test as basically a standard operating procedure. every now and then the systems need to be tested as against the procedures that we've already defined for organizations there. Now, agents, typically the accuracy level of agents are pretty high, but again, the predictability and the contextual environments are different. Everything could be coming up separately as a different environment altogether. That is where we need to look at environments, the way they're changing, and put again changes into the stress test environments there as well. The third aspect is, again, the learning loops is more in terms of how do you define your thresholds, how do you define the governance mechanism around it. Uh, Again, the governance mechanism will be defined by how do you define processes. That's why I'm saying humans in the loop is very, very important. And that's where this particular part of governance becomes extremely important. For agentic processes to flow, it's important to govern them on an ongoing basis through processes. And those processes cannot be agentic again. It has to be people driven. That's why the human element typically comes and creates a big impact there.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Exponential by Design, Growth DNA Designed for an AI First World. If I wanted to buy a copy, where can I get one from?
It's pretty much available on Amazon, and you can buy it from our website itself, which is also called xbd.co.in. And I look forward to catching up again.
And where can we find information about you?
Pretty much available on LinkedIn. I keep on posting quite a bit, and I think I'm pretty much available. You can connect me on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book.